Empire Earnings. Build your financial empire.
Let's talk about that sinking feeling. You've just moved to the US, you're a few weeks in, and you check your bank account. And then your stomach just drops. That feeling of, wait a second, where did all my money go? It's so common. So in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly why that happens, and more importantly, how you can actually take back control. Let's dive in. So picture this. You've just landed, you're in the United States, everything feels electric, right? It's a new country, there are new opportunities, you're starting a whole new life. You're getting your place set up, exploring the campus, and just soaking in that first real taste of freedom.
And honestly, for those first couple of weeks, everything just seems to fall into place. It really does feel kind of perfect. The excitement is through the roof, you're meeting new people, getting into a new rhythm, life is good.
But then, that moment comes. You know the one. Maybe it's a random Tuesday morning. You're grabbing coffee. You pull out your phone, you tap on that little banking app icon, and you just pause for a second. Something feels a little off. And there it is. The number on the screen is a total shock. It is way, way lower than you thought it would be. So you start scrolling through your recent transactions, but you don't see any huge glaring purchases. Nothing that really explains where it all went.
And that's when you ask yourself the question that thousands of students ask every single year. Hang on, where did my money actually go? And this, right here, is the moment you realize that handling your finances here, it's a completely different ballgame. All right, so first things first, let's get a reality check. I think underestimating the true cost of living here is probably the biggest trap you can fall into. And the numbers, well, they might surprise you.
So on average, a student in the US spends somewhere between $1,500 and $2,500 every single month. And here's the kicker. That number does not include your tuition. Nope. This is just for things like rent, food, getting around, and other basic living expenses. Now, if you do the math on that, you're looking at $18,000 to $30,000 a year. Let that sink in, just on living expenses. And once you add tuition to that, the total can easily rocket past $50,000, $60,000. It adds up so fast. But here's where things start to shift. This is where you can take back some power. You don't have to make these massive, crazy changes to your life. What if, just what if, you could find a way to trim your spending by just $500 a month? That sounds doable, right? Well, that one small, manageable monthly change, it adds up to $6,000 in savings over a single year. That's not a small amount of money. That is a game-changing amount of cash you can now use for your goals, for tuition, for your future. Okay, so this brings us to what might be the biggest misunderstanding that students have when they start feeling this financial squeeze. They assume there's only one way out, but it's often the wrong path. The first thought that pops into almost everyone's head is, okay, I just need to earn more money. It makes perfect sense on the surface, doesn't it? More income should solve the problem. But what we see time and time again is that's rarely the case.
Just think about it for a second. We've all seen it. Some students earn, say, $1,000 a month, and they're still able to put money aside. And then you have others who make $3,000 a month and are constantly struggling. The big secret here is that it's not really about how big your paycheck is, it's all about your spending habits. If those are out of control, no amount of money is ever going to feel like enough.
So if spending's the real problem, then let's actually figure out where all this money is going. It's not usually one big thing, it's more like a slow, silent drip. Tiny leaks that happen every single day. Let's break down some of these invisible costs. First up, the daily food bill. You order some delivery for lunch. It's maybe $12. Doesn't seem like a big deal. But if you do that every day, poof, that's $360 a month right there. Then you add in a daily coffee and a few snacks, another $300. And just like that, you've spent over $600 without even really thinking about it.
Next, let's talk about the transportation trap. You know, choosing an Uber over taking the bus is just so easy and convenient, but a $10 or $15 ride here and there adds up fast. If you're using it regularly, you could easily be spending an extra $200 to $300 a month just on getting from point A to point B.
And then, oh yeah, the subscription creep. A little bit for Netflix, a little for Spotify, a little for Amazon Prime. Each one seems totally insignificant on its own, but you add them all up and they create this constant drain of $40, $50, maybe even $60 a month on services you might barely even use. Okay, now let's zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture.
because this isn't just about your personal choices. The reality is, you're operating inside a system that is specifically built to encourage this exact kind of spending. The United States runs on what's called a consumer economy. In plain English, the entire system, the whole thing, is engineered to make it as easy, as fast, and as thoughtless as possible for you to spend your money. I mean, just think about it. You can get food delivered to your door in minutes. Websites have one-click checkouts. Your credit card information is saved everywhere. Payments are instantaneous. Every single little bit of friction, every moment that might make you pause and think, do I really need this? It has been systematically removed. So all of this really boils down to a fundamental choice. The default setting in this system is what you could call accidental spending. It's where your money just kind of vanishes without you noticing. The only way to fight this is with intentional control. In the US, you don't accidentally save money. You have to actively, consciously, and purposefully manage it every single day. Look, none of this is your fault, but it is your new reality. You now have the instruction manual for how this whole system works. You understand the rules of the game, and you know that intentional control is how you win. So the only question left is, are you ready to play?
You ever get that sinking feeling? You check your bank account and the number is way lower than you thought it would be. You're thinking, wait, I didn't buy anything big, so where did it all go? Well, it turns out the answer isn't about your wallet, it's about what's going on in your head. And today, we're going to uncover the hidden psychology that's been quietly draining your account.
And really, it all comes down to this one simple question, doesn't it? You're there, hovering over the buy button. There's that little voice in your head saying, don't do it, save the money. And yet, you do it anyway. Why? What is going on in that moment? Okay, so here's the first thing we need to get straight. Most of us think our money problems come from some huge catastrophic mistake, but that's not it at all. The truth is, your savings don't break, they leak. It's a slow, steady drip from dozens of small, seemingly harmless little decisions that you make every single day.
So this is the most crucial part. Getting a grip on your finances isn't about being a math whiz or building some crazy, complicated spreadsheet. It's all psychology. As soon as you understand the hidden forces in your own mind that are pushing you to make those small choices, well, controlling your money becomes a whole lot easier.
All right, let's dive into the first big one. This is probably the most powerful force working against your wallet, the real puppet master behind your spending habits, the emotional spending trigger.
I want you to picture this, because I bet it sounds familiar. It's been a long, brutal day. You've got assignments stacked up, deadlines are breathing down your neck, and you just feel this intense pressure. Bottom line, you're completely wiped out. So, in that moment of total exhaustion, what's the go-to move? What's the easiest, most comforting thing you can do? You pull out your phone and you order food. Not because you're starving, but because it feels good. It's a quick fix for a bad feeling. And that right there, that's emotional spending. See, you're not buying a product, you're buying a feeling. You're using your money to try and manage stress, or boredom, or loneliness, or maybe just to give yourself a little reward. And this is so dangerous because, well, you have emotions every single day. So how in the world do you fight this? It's simple, but it's not easy. You create a tiny pause. That's it, a little buffer. The next time you get that urge, you just stop for 1 second and ask yourself this exact question. Just building this one habit can be a total game changer for your wallet. Okay, so that emotional trigger is a huge deal when you're by yourself. But what happens when you throw other people into the mix? Oh yeah, that brings us to our second hidden money drain, the crazy high cost of just trying to fit in.
You know the scene. You're with your friends, and someone says the magic words, hey, let's go grab dinner. And your stomach just drops, right? Because your mind starts racing. You know you can't afford it, but you don't want to be the one who says no. You don't want to feel left out or, even worse, look cheap. So you just go along with it. You say yes.
And you think, what's the big deal? It's just one dinner, right? But do that a couple of times a week, and bam, all of a sudden, you've got a $400 hole in your monthly budget, all from not wanting to say no.
Look, the answer isn't to become a hermit and never see your friends again. It's about being strategic. You can take back control. Be the one to suggest cheaper plans, like a movie night at home. Or, here's a pro move, eat a little something before you go out so you spend way less at the restaurant. Or just give yourself a set social budget for the month, and when it's gone, it's gone.
And this all comes down to a really powerful mindset shift. We're sort of taught that saying no to our friends is weak or kind of rude. But let me tell you, when it comes to your money, saying no to something you can't afford isn't weakness. It's a superpower. It is the ultimate sign of financial strength.
This brings us to the third trap, and honestly, this one is the sneakiest of them all. It's so dangerous because it doesn't even feel like you're making a mistake. It just feels normal. We call it lifestyle inflation.
So here's how it starts. Maybe you move to a new place, or you get a little raise at work. And slowly, almost without you even noticing, your standards just start to creep up. You start buying the slightly better brand of food. You get some nicer clothes. You start taking Ubers instead of the bus, for convenience. And you just tell yourself, hey, this is normal.
But here's the trap. As you can see, your income might stay exactly the same, but your spending quietly creeps up and up and up. You start off with a perfectly balanced budget, but a few months down the line, suddenly you're spending way more than you make. And that growing gap right there, that's the danger zone. That's where financial stress is born.
So what's the fix? Well, it's a simple golden principle. The next time you get more money, your first move is not to upgrade your lifestyle. Your first move has to be increasing how much you save. Just live on what you were living on before and put that extra cash away. You can upgrade your life later once your savings are nice and secure.
All right, so we've diagnosed the problems: emotional spending, social pressure, lifestyle inflation. Now for the fun part. Let's bring it all together and build the weapon you need to actually fight back: a simple but really effective control system.
And trust me, you need a system. Why? Because willpower fades. It's a muscle, and it gets tired. Your good intentions, they disappear the second you're stressed. A good system, though, that keeps working for you day in and day out, no matter how you're feeling. It's what makes the change actually stick. And here it is, super simple, just 4 steps. Step 1 is awareness. You have to track every single dollar. I don't mean roughly, I mean exactly. Step 2 is categorization. You just sort every expense into 3 simple buckets: what you need to live, what you want for fun, and what was just plain waste. Step 3, limits. You set a hard spending cap for your big categories. And finally, and this is the most important part, Step 4, the weekly review. 10 minutes, once a week. You just look at where your money went and make small adjustments.
In the end, it really all boils down to this one powerful truth. Think about it. It's true for your fitness, your work, your money, everything. The things you pay attention to, those are the things that get better. And the things you choose to ignore, well, those are the things that will always, inevitably, spiral out of control. So, the final question is, which one are you going to choose for your money?
Saving $1,000 a month while you're a student sounds pretty impossible, right? Well, in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly how you can do it. And trust me, it's more achievable than you think. But first, let's start with the most important question of all. Do you actually know where your money is really going each month?
Because here's the honest truth about finances. If you don't have a crystal clear picture of where your cash is flowing, you're just flying blind. You can't possibly take control of something you can't see.
So, let's take control. Right now, we're going to do a deep dive, a really practical breakdown of every single major expense a student like you faces.
Okay, let's kick things off with the absolute biggest one: housing. Seriously, this isn't just your largest expense, it is by far your single biggest opportunity to save a whole lot of money.
And the scale of this is, well, it's kind of staggering. Just look at this chart. For most students, housing eats up 40 to 50% of their entire monthly budget. It's a financial giant you have to face head on.
And you got to remember, housing isn't just one number on a check. It's this whole bundle of costs. You've got rent, of course, but then there's electricity, heating, internet, water, heck, sometimes even furniture. It all gets added up under one roof.
So this brings us to what I like to call the $500 decision. It's a choice a ton of students face. On one side, you've got that private room for, let's say, $1,200 a month. On the other, a shared room for $700. The want for privacy is real, I get it. But that financial cost, it's just as real.
And that $500 difference every month, it adds up faster than you can imagine. Over a single year, that is $6,000. Just think about that for a second. A huge pile of cash that could be going towards your goals instead of just your rent.
So here's the bottom line. Housing is not just a bill you have to pay. It's a strategic financial decision. It literally sets the stage for your entire budget.
All right, next up, food. This one's tricky. I call it the silent money drain. And it's so dangerous because the costs are small, they're daily, and you barely even notice them until you look at your bank statement at the end of the month.
No, really, let's just do the math right now. Look at this table. One meal out, maybe 10, 15 bucks. No big deal, right? But what happens if you do that twice a day? Suddenly, you're looking at anywhere from $600 to $900 gone, just on takeout. Now hold that number in your head and compare it to the alternative, the typical monthly cost for groceries. If you're cooking most of your meals yourself, it's around 300 bucks. The difference is it's huge.
And this gets to the heart of it. A lot of the time, our food spending is about convenience or what we're feeling, not just about being hungry. So if you can get a handle on your food costs, you are fundamentally taking control of your entire financial life. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about transport and all those other hidden costs. These are the little financial traps that are just so easy to fall into if you're not paying close attention. So here's another classic student dilemma, the commuting choice. Owning a car, it feels like freedom, right? But that freedom comes with a pretty steep price tag. We're talking $300 to $500 a month once you factor in insurance, gas, and maintenance. Now compare that to a public transport pass, which is often less than $100.
The big takeaway here is simple, but it's so important. A car isn't just a convenient way to get from A to B. It is a serious, ongoing financial commitment that you have to be ready for. Now, let's talk about what I think might be the most dangerous expenses of all, the ones you don't even feel leaving your account. They're small, they're automatic, and they are just quietly draining your money.
What am I talking about? These guys, the silent spenders. Your Netflix, your Spotify, your Amazon Prime, each one is just $10 or $15. And then you have that random shopping black hole for all the little things you grab online. They seem so insignificant by themselves.
But look what happens when you actually add them all up. These insignificant costs can easily hit $150 to $300 every single month. It's a classic case of death by a thousand cuts. Okay, so we've broken down all the expenses. Now for the exciting part. Let's put it all together and see how these choices let you save over $13,000 a year. This is where the strategy really pays off. This right here is your monthly savings roadmap. By choosing a shared room, you can save $400 or more. By cooking at home, you're pocketing another $500 plus. And by taking public transport, you save at least $200. These aren't fantasy numbers, they're totally achievable. In the grand total, when you add all that up, you're looking at over $1,100. That's your potential savings, not for a whole year, but for every single month. That is life-changing money right there.
But let's not stop there. Let's just zoom out for a second and look at the whole year. Those smart monthly decisions, they compounded to more than $13,000. I mean, just imagine what you could do with an extra 13 grand. And that really brings us to the most important takeaway from all of this. Saving this kind of money doesn't mean you have to live some miserable life of extreme sacrifice. Not at all. It just means you need to make a few smart, strategic decisions right at the start.
We're building a complete, step-by-step money-saving system right from the ground up. Whether you're a student or you're just starting out on your own for the first time, we're going to take all that financial confusion and turn it into absolute clarity. Let's dive in. You know, it's a funny thing. You track your spending, you look at the numbers, you might even get why you spend the way you do. But all that information can be super frustrating, right? Because it usually just leaves you asking one giant question. Okay, but what am I actually supposed to do now? And that right there is the missing piece. See, the answer isn't more information. You don't need another spreadsheet. What you need is a system, something you can just lean on day in and day out without having to rethink every single decision. And that is exactly what we are going to build right now. So let's talk about the system that you've probably been missing. Think of this as the complete roadmap that's going to put you squarely in the driver's seat of your finances starting today.
Our system has 4 really clear parts. First up, we're going to tackle your single biggest expense, head on. Then we'll get a handle on all those little daily decisions. After that, we are going to find and plug all the small hidden leaks in your budget. And finally, we'll master the most important part of all, your own behavior.
Okay, so we're starting with the biggest lever you can possibly pull. We're going to tackle your single largest expense. And for, well, pretty much everyone, that means getting your housing strategy right from the very beginning. The logic here is so simple, but it is incredibly powerful. You always want to reduce your biggest fixed expenses first. I mean, think about it. When that one giant, consistent bill is as low as you can get it, the financial pressure on everything else just melts away. This is the single biggest move you can make.
So how do we actually do this? Well, it's a four-part strategy. First, and this is crucial, never, ever rush this decision. Give yourself time to see all the options. Second, you have to choose to share intelligently, and we're going to dig into what that means in a sec. Third, use the distance strategy. Living just 10 or 15 minutes further away can literally save you hundreds. And finally, split everything. Don't carry the full weight of rent, utilities, and internet alone if you don't have to.
Now, this idea of smart sharing is a real game changer. It's not just about getting roommates to split a big apartment. No, it's about rethinking the space itself. So picture one person paying $1,200 for their own room. Now, what if two people share that same room for $700 each? It's a subtle little mind shift, but it unlocks massive savings for everybody involved.
And when you look at it like this, wow, the difference is just staggering. That gap between living alone and sharing smartly isn't just a tiny saving, it's a total financial game changer.
And the result? A massive $500 difference every single month. That is $6,000 a year, just freed up from one single strategic decision. That is the power of tackling your biggest expense first.
So just remember this, your housing decision is not just about where you're going to live this year. It's a decision that echoes through your entire financial future. You get this one right, and I promise you, everything else becomes so much easier.
All right, so we've locked in those huge monthly savings. Now, let's zoom in a little and talk about controlling your daily decisions. This is where all those small choices in two key areas, food and transport, they can add up incredibly fast.
The goal here is pretty simple. Get a handle on your daily spending. Unlike rent, which you only decide on once a year, food is a decision you're making multiple times a day. And if you don't have a system, impulse and convenience are just going to drain your wallet, guaranteed.
So here's the four-step food system. It all starts with a non-negotiable monthly budget. Somewhere between $300 to $400 is a fantastic target. Next, you got to plan your meals weekly. This completely eliminates that, what's for dinner stress. Then you prep your meals in bulk, which saves you a ton of time and money. And finally, get strategic with your groceries. Think big shops at places like Aldi or Costco, and avoid those little expensive daily trips to the store.
Now for transport, the strategy's even simpler. The main goal is just to avoid big fixed expenses early on. So, use the campus shuttle, take public transport, walk, bike, whatever works. But the one big rule here, try to avoid buying a car in your first year if you possibly can. It's just a huge fixed cost you probably don't need right away.
It all really boils down to this. Convenience today often just means an expense tomorrow. Every time you grab takeout because you didn't plan, or you take a ride share instead of the bus, you're just choosing to spend more later on.
Okay, so we've tackled the big fixed costs and the daily variable costs. Now it's time to plug the small leaks. You know what I'm talking about, those sneaky little subscriptions that are quietly draining your bank account every single month.
Here's the whole problem with subscriptions. They feel tiny, right? It's $5 here, $10 there. It doesn't seem like a big deal. But then they stack up, and before you know it, you're paying a huge amount every single month for a bunch of things you barely even use.
So the solution here has to be aggressive, but it's simple. Tonight, I want you to open up a document and list every single recurring payment you have. Then, go down that list and ask one totally ruthless question. Do I use this every single week? And if the answer is no, you cancel it, right then and there. Your goal should be to cut at least half of them. Be brutal.
You have to remember this. Small leaks sink big ships. And your budget? It's the ship. These forgotten subscriptions are the leaks. You have to plug them if you want to stay afloat and actually get ahead.
And now we've arrived at the final and honestly the most powerful part of this system, mastering your own behavior. This is where we install a spending control system directly into your daily habits.
We're going to use 4 really powerful rules to build that financial discipline. First, the 48-hour rule. Force yourself to wait 2 full days before you make any non-essential purchase. This absolutely kills impulse buys. Second, a weekly fund budget. Give yourself a fixed limit, maybe $50 for anything extra. Third, no spend days. Pick 2 days a week where your wallet stays completely shut. And finally, the cash trick. Withdraw your weekly fund budget in cash. When the cash is gone, it's gone. Simple as that.
And that really brings us to the final, most important takeaway of all. This entire system, from your rent to your lunch to your subscriptions, it's all about one thing: taking control. Because if you don't consciously control your habits, you can be sure your habits will unconsciously control your money.
So the only question left is, who do you want to be in charge?
Hello and welcome. So you feel like you've got the basics of saving money down, but you're just not seeing the results you want, right? Well, you're in exactly the right place. Today, we're going deeper, way beyond the usual tips, to uncover the hidden rules that really decide whether you build wealth or lose it. I think we've all heard this a million times. We're taught that if we can just be a little more disciplined, say no to that daily latte, then all our financial problems will magically disappear. But what if I told you that's not even close to where the real battle is? Here's the deal. The basic saving tips, they help you survive. But the advanced strategies we're talking about today, they help you get ahead. The biggest things draining your bank account are often the things we're trained to completely overlook. So let's make them visible. Okay, let's dive right into our first big myth. This is the idea that pinching pennies on small, daily things is the secret to getting rich. You know, it's where most people start, but it's a deeply flawed strategy because it ignores where the vast majority of your money is actually going. First up, we've got what are called fixed expenses. Think of these as the giant predictable bills that hit your account every single month like clockwork. We're talking rent, car insurance, your internet bill. They're consistent, and boy, are they big. And then you've got your variable expenses. These are all the costs that change based on your day-to-day choices, things like groceries, going out, shopping. And this, right here, is where most of us mistakenly pour all of our energy when we try to save. And this slide shows you exactly why that's such a huge mistake. Just look at the difference in scale. In this typical example, rent, a fixed expense, absolutely towers over the food budget. It's more than double. And yet, we spend all our time and stress trying to chip away at that much, much smaller bar. Now check this out, because this is where it gets really clear. Let's say you go all out, you're super disciplined and cut your food budget by a heroic 20%. You might save about $100. Okay, not bad. But making just one big structural change, like getting a roommate to split the rent, could save you $400 instantly. The impact isn't even in the same league. So, here's the golden rule, the huge takeaway from this section. Focus on the big wins first. Attack your largest fixed expenses, your housing, your transportation. Get those numbers down. Then, once you've done that, you can start fine-tuning the daily spending. Okay, this idea builds perfectly into our next major point, and this one's a little more subtle. It's about a powerful, silent pressure that can completely wreck your finances. The trap of trying to live a normal lifestyle that just doesn't line up with your income. You know what I'm talking about, especially if you're a student or you've just moved to a new city. You look around and see people living a certain way. They're always eating out, they've got nice cars, they live in these beautiful apartments. It's so easy to start thinking, oh, I guess this is just how people live here. And that, of course, leads to that million-dollar question you start asking yourself in secret. If this is normal, why am I the only one struggling to keep up? How is everybody else managing this so easily? Well, here's the reality check they don't advertise. They are not in the same financial boat as you. Not even close. They might be working high-paying full-time jobs, they might come from wealthy families who are helping them out, or, and this is a big one, they might be funding that entire lifestyle with a mountain of credit card debt. And this line on the slide just says it all. Your lifestyle has to match your wallet, not the illusion you see around you. Trying to keep up with people playing a different financial game is a race you're guaranteed to lose. All right, so we've talked about external pressures. Now let's switch gears and talk about an internal one. This is an enemy that works completely under the radar. The mental exhaustion that quietly tricks you into making expensive choices. It's a concept called decision fatigue. See, every single day, your brain makes hundreds, maybe thousands of tiny decisions. What to wear, what to eat, what email to answer first. And just like a muscle, your willpower gets tired. When your brain is totally drained, it defaults to the easiest possible option. And let's be honest, the easiest path is almost always the most expensive one, like clicking a button for food delivery instead of actually cooking. So the solution isn't to have more willpower, it's to make fewer decisions. You beat decision fatigue by creating systems. A fixed meal plan for the week, a standard grocery list you always buy. You automate the good habits so you don't even have to think about them. It puts you back in control. And that idea of creating systems leads us perfectly to another powerful, invisible force. And it's this. Your physical and social environment often has way more control over your spending than your own conscious choices do. I mean, just think about it. If your roommate orders pizza every night, the smell and the convenience make it incredibly tempting to just join in. If your entire friend group's main activity is going to expensive bars, you feel this immense pressure to go along. Your environment is constantly nudging you, pushing you to spend money. So the advanced move here is to consciously design your environment for financial success. Choose to live with people who share your financial goals. Make saving the easy choice by having good food ready to cook at home. You don't just manage your money, you manage the world around you that's trying to get you to spend it. Okay, let's bring all of this home. Now remember how we started by saying that focusing only on small cuts was a myth? Well, it is if that's the only thing you do. But here's the twist. Once you've handled your big fixed costs and you've designed a supportive environment, those small daily choices suddenly become incredibly powerful. Let's just take a number that feels totally insignificant. $10. You know, the cost of a fancy coffee and a pastry, a quick delivery lunch. On any given day, spending $10 feels like absolutely nothing. But what happens when that nothing expense becomes a daily habit? After just 1 year, that $10 habit has cost you over $3,600. That's enough for a major vacation, a brand new laptop, or a serious chunk of an investment. And what if you let it go for just 2 years? Now you're looking at over $7,000. It just goes to show you, once the big things are handled, it's these tiny, seemingly harmless decisions that truly compound and shape your financial future. And that leaves us with this powerful final thought. You know, financial ruin rarely happens because of one single catastrophe. It accumulates. It's built slowly, one small, unexamined habit at a time. So the real question we have to ask ourselves is, which habits are we building today?
Okay, so if you're a student, I'm willing to bet you've heard this a million times. Save your money. But what if that's only half the story? Today we're going to talk about making the leap from just saving to actually earning, and why that one little shift could be the key to your entire financial future.
So let's just cut right to the chase. If your goal is real, actual financial freedom, is pinching pennies and stashing away whatever you can really going to get you there?
The short answer? No, it's not. Look, saving is absolutely essential, don't get me wrong, but it's just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. You simply can't save your way to true wealth.
And this is where we have to make a big mental shift. It's time to go beyond just saving and adopt an earning mindset. It's a totally different way of thinking about where your money comes from.
Think about it like this. There's a hard limit, a ceiling, on how much you can save. I mean, if you make $1,000, the absolute most you can save is $1,000. But earning, well, there's no limit on that. Saving is playing defense. Earning is playing offense.
Exactly. Saving is what protects what you already have. It's your safety net. But earning is the engine. It's what actually grows your money and builds your future.
Okay, so you're probably thinking, great, how do I start earning? Well, for most students, the journey begins with a part-time job. But listen, there's a smart way to do it, and there's a way that can seriously hold you back.
This is what I call the overworking trap. You know what I'm talking about? It's when you get so focused on that hourly wage that your studies start to slip. And that just leads to stress, bad grades, and believe it or not, it can actually hurt your career down the road.
So the smart strategy is to find a job that fits your student life, not the other way around. You have to set limits to protect your study time. And then you treat the money you make not just as extra spending cash, but as the very first step toward your bigger financial goals.
If you take away one thing from this section, let it be this. Today's paycheck is never worth sacrificing your future career for. Your main job right now, as a student, is to invest in yourself for the long haul.
All right, a job is a good starting point, for sure. But if you really want to change the game, the answer is skills. Developing a skill is how you break free from just trading your time for money. And here's the key difference. This is huge. A job pays you for your time. A skill, on the other hand, pays you for the value you create. It completely shatters the link between how many hours you work and how much money you can make.
So let's take a typical campus job, right? You might make, say, $15 an hour. It's steady income, but there are only so many hours in a day you can possibly work.
But now, what if you had a skill, like designing a logo or editing a short video? You could make $100 for a project that might only take you a couple of hours. See the difference? That's the power of selling value, not just your time.
And this is so important, especially for international students. A job can be temporary. A visa has limits, but a skill? That's yours forever. It's a real asset you can take with you and use to earn money anywhere in the world.
So how do you actually put these skills into practice? Let's look at some real, down-to-earth ways you can start your very first side hustle.
You know, you could dive into freelancing on sites like Fiverr or Upwork. Or, hey, if you're a creative type, maybe start building an audience on YouTube or Instagram. Even your academic skills are valuable. You can monetize them through tutoring or finding on-campus assistant roles.
Now, it's super easy to look at that list and get totally overwhelmed. But here's the secret. You don't need to do everything. Just pick one thing, one that actually interests you, and focus on getting it right. One successful income stream is worth way more than 5 that are just kinda fizzling out.
So the money is starting to come in. Now what? You can't just let it float around. You need a system. Here's a super simple 3-part plan to make sure every single dollar you earn has a job to do. Okay, I call this the 3-part money system. All you do is divide your income into 3 buckets: spend, save, and grow. Spend is pretty obvious. That's for your daily needs. Save is for your security, your future. And grow, this is the exciting part. This is money you're going to invest back into yourself and your skills.
Let's make it real. Say you earn $1,000. Maybe $600 goes to spending and $300 goes straight into savings. And that last $100, that's your grow money. You use that to buy a course, a book, or a tool that's going to level up your skills.
What this does is it creates this positive feedback loop. See, better skills lead to more income, which gives you more money to invest in, well, even better skills. This is how you make your money start working for you. All right, let's zoom out and bring this all home, because honestly, this whole conversation isn't just about spreadsheets and bank accounts. It's about designing the life you actually want to live.
You know, being a student is so much more than just classes and exams. It's really a training ground for life. It's where you learn to juggle priorities, handle pressure, and take real responsibility.
And if you can get a handle on your money now, while you're a student, you're giving yourself a massive head start. It's a skill, a superpower really, that most people don't learn until much, much later in life. So here's the bottom line. It all comes down to this. The money habits you build right now, they're going to stick with you. If you learn how to control your money as a student, I promise you, you will be in control of your future as an adult. It really is that simple.